Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora Chewy, how are you, love?
I am good. I'm good. I've had an exciting weekend away. Easter is over. Yay.
Yay,
Yay.
Easter over. But you had the most exciting boyhood dream Easter. That I get your
I did go
little
a little bit
Chewy wet
crazy.
dream every once a year, isn't it? Over Easter weekend.
No, well, see, this is the thing. In my previous jobs, I've never been able to get Easter off because it's a big
Right.
retail weekend and that sort of thing. And Warbirds happens every 2 years. It's supposed to, but then COVID and blah, 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 blah. So this time round, I was like, I'm not going to miss this year's one. So me and a really good buddy of mine headed up to Wanaka and had a look at the air show on Saturday. Anybody that's on my social media got bombarded with about 150 photos
900
that I took.
photos.
So many photos, and had an absolute blast. A nice part of it is my mate who came with me. That was his first experience of an electric car,
Oh, cool.
and it was like, oh, do we have to worry about the charging? And I was like, no, she'll be sweet. But yeah, it's interesting what he pointed out as we were overtaking, and he's like, oh, that is unsettling.
The
And I'm
power,
like, oh,
the speed.
what's that? He goes, well, no, the lack of engine noise.
Right,
So there's
right.
no like as you accelerate away. And he's like, wow, that's super smooth. So yeah, it was fun. So we spent most of it talking about electric cars.
Very cool. And if anyone wants to see all those photos, I guess so they can follow you online. And if you've got time to go through 1,324 photos of various kinds of warbirds over Wanaka, then more power to you.
I am an airplane nerd.
Yeah.
Straight away, what was your favorite plane? This year was the unveiling of the Mosquito that has been sitting in some dude's farm shed since 1955.
Oh, has it got to do
They've
with
had
Peter, what's his name? Lord of the Rings have to do with that?
no, nothing to do with it at all. Just a farmer in Blenheim decided to buy a Mustang and a Mosquito in the 50s when the Air Force was getting rid of them, and he just parked them up in a shed and did nothing with them. And
Wow.
they sat there until he died. And then people found them and they were like, oh shit. So both of those aircraft have been renovated, rebuilt.
Yeah.
And both of them were flying at this year's Warbird. So the Mosquito is an iconic World War II aircraft that I've never seen in the flesh.
Wow.
So to see it flying around was just a real holy shit moment for me.
It's quite a big thing in America when you watch some of those reality TV shows. They have barn finds, and they find a 1968 Ferrari, which has not been driven since 1969, and it's got this much dust on it, and they fix it up, and it's worth $1.3 million at the end of it all.
Yeah, no, just absolutely just crazy. I can only imagine what it's like just to have that stuff sitting in your shed, and you're like, well, it's one of those things I'll get round to.
Yeah.
And then they never do.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I don't know if you can hear that little crunch that I'm doing, but I had quite a good weekend away from work. It was very difficult for me not to work, but I got everything done by lunchtime on Friday, and I didn't walk back into the studio until this afternoon. So it was really nice and quite useful because I was as sick as a dog over the weekend. I honestly, I thought this is COVID. I've got COVID again. Bugger it. What a terrible time. I'm supposed to be going away next weekend and I've just got COVID. It wasn't COVID, but it was it wouldn't have been the flu either because it was really just 4 days, 3 or 4 days, but it was just ropeable. And because I've got asthma puffer, what happens after I get over a cold is I cough and I cough and I cough, and it's just asthma. It's not the sickness anymore, which is really hard in this day and age, Chewy, because you walk into the supermarket and you go, everyone goes and runs away from you because they think you're infected. So I'm forever saying to people, it's asthma, and I show them my puffer. I'm saying, I'm got COVID. It's just asthma.
It's not COVID.
No. And so there will be a time tonight, just telling the people that I probably will have a coughing fit because talking doesn't help, ironically. And when I do, I will be switching my mic off and going, yeah, you can do it. You, Chewy, you can go, Chewy, you take over. But in here, I've got a hot water, and hot water helps keep my throat stimulated. I'm sucking on Strepsils, and that's just for the sucking motion. That's what she said. And I've got my asthma puffer. And so hopefully, we are going to be all good, but there might just have to be a 30-second momentarily step off to the side while I throw a lung up. And the other thing is, you see what I'm wearing?
Buffer.
So I've apologized about 19 times for the delay in getting the merch out to people, but not that you need to zoom in, but here's all my tickets from the post shop telling me everyone bar I think one gear is on courier today if you ordered in that second week of merch. I have all your tracking numbers, and I have a massively busy week, so I will do my absolute best to get you your tracking numbers tomorrow. But if I don't, you might find your gear turns up before you get your tracking number. But everything's in the post, everything's going out there, bar one person who we didn't have the address for, but we'll sort that out. So most of you will be receiving it in the next 2 or 3 days, we'll be hopeful. Oh, one person got it today because we had a purchase from Dunedin, so I did a little drive-by and then threw the t-shirt in as well. That's what we did. Okay, so lots going on. Of course, we are looking at this idea for the 36-point action plan from our new government. And I'll tell you something. I don't have it, but I'm sure you'll believe me when I tell you. Because I unfortunately do spend some time with the dregs of society, having them in my ear holes and stuff. Sometimes Karen Plunkett pops up into my feed, and he did this morning, and it was his live stream, and I pushed play, and I heard Karen Plunkett criticising the government, Chewy, for running the country like a business. So,
Comrade Oliver,
yeah, I know.
what is going on?
So when you've got alt-right, conspiracy theorist aligned, preaching to the anti-vaxxer, anti-mandate. I'm not saying Plunkett's necessarily, I think, but that's the world he's in. Actually saying at the end of his show, all right, but someone needs to tell Luxon this isn't a business. And at some stage you'll have to start running this thing like a country. You're like, no, if you've lost that, then there's something to be said. So maybe we'll just get straight into that. We've got the story hot off the press. One News talking about it. We'll have a look at what they've got to say. I've got a few examples of what they talk about. And then, of course, Queen Chloe's response as well. So why don't we start there? Is there anything else you wanted to throw out there before we get into stuff?
No, let's kick this pig.
Kick this pig. You shouldn't say that. All right, here we go.
Set targets, take decisions and raise the energy. That's some of the phrasing in the government's newly released action plan outlining its priorities.
Raise the energy. Energy levels are too low. So as a government, we want to raise the energy, Chewy. That's part of our action plan moving forward. One of the biggest criticisms of this, and I'm preempting it a little bit, is basically it does sound like a CEO to middle management where we need to reach our KPIs. That's actually what it all sounds like. That's so.
Sounds like a fucking dream journal.
But you already knew
like,
that.
I'm just going to manifest this stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Here we go.
Priorities over the next 3 months. While it includes big ticket items like establishing a regional infrastructure fund, it also lists more obvious objectives like delivering next month's budget. And the opposition has criticised it, with Labor saying the country shouldn't be run like a company, while the Green Party's calling the plan a 36-point bingo card. Political editor Mikey Sherman reports.
The Health Minister getting the word out today.
Can I say as well, you'll be pleased to hear on that same particular radio/internet broadcast I was listening to this morning, some degrading comments were made about our hairless leader getting a flu jab. So that came out as well as the business criticism.
About the seasonal flu jab.
Strongly supportive of flu vaccine.
So too the Prime Minister.
Shane, can you come and hold my hand?
The coalition government ensuring it's fighting fit as it unveils its busy quarterly action plan with 36 points.
It's very important to me because otherwise, the dangerous things just drift.
But some of the language used, like, quote, taking decisions, is raising eyebrows.
It's a whole lot of jargon. And it's very broad. There's no level of detail.
It's just corporate buzzword soup.
The opposition claiming it's...
Luxon was on Breakfast this morning, and I've got 2 little 20-second snippets where Anna Burns-Francis questioned him about those buzzwords and some more examples of what those buzzwords are, which we'll play after we do this.
window dressing.
It's trying to leverage off the fact that the Prime Minister used to be a chief executive, treating New Zealand like it is a business.
No, I'm running this as a country and it's different from a company, but I am someone who's come to this job over the last 3 years, as you know, from politics, having led large organisations and having turned a lot of things around.
This 36-point plan reads as far more of a bingo card for environmental destruction and trickle-down economics.
Action points affecting the environment include finalising policy to keep agriculture out of the emissions trading scheme, making decisions about removing the ban on oil.
Sorry, are you out, Chewie? Is that it? You're out.
Our biggest emitter.
Yep.
Let's keep that out.
Yep.
Keep that out.
Yep. That's like saying let's work on these people smoking, but we're going to exclude Rothmans completely from what we're actually doing, and they'll be off to the side, not having to worry about it. So completely out. Agriculture out of the ETS.
Offshore oil and gas exploration and investigating reopening the Marsden Point oil refinery.
So it's all, as we've been saying all the way along, it's not new ideas. It's going backwards. It's going backwards. Reopening. It's going backwards. It's not moving forwards. It's going backwards.
This is just yet another relentless series of attacks on this government's war on nature.
A fuel resilience plan is absolutely important for the industry. I'm advised on some days our fuel security can sink as low as 7 days worth of fuel.
New Zealand.
You know, there's an answer to that, Chewie, eh? Which we might talk about later in the show. If New Zealand's,
there is a bloody answer.
There is an answer to that, people. If New Zealand's fuel supplies gets down to only having a week left for the whole country, there's a really clear, it's an electrifying idea, Chewie, that we might get to a bit later on in the show, that this government is currently murdering like you would never believe.
I love these guys consistently can identify the problem and then completely fumble a response or an answer to it. Yes, Shane, we can sometimes run low on fuel.
Yep.
Is opening oil and gas exploration in New Zealand the solution? No, because it's not fuel oil in our area. It's not petroleum.
First Regional Infrastructure Fund will also be unveiled.
$400 million a year, working with councils.
When it comes to education, the government will advance the rollout of structured literacy for year 1 to 3 students, bring back charter schools and launch an attendance action plan to get kids back in school, including fines for some parents.
We're not going to fine everybody. It's not our main strategy.
Just the brown ones.
That's actually around things like data and triaging which kids need the most help and how effective the attendance officers are.
The coalition hoping its 3-month checklist
The blue one's the better.
will pay off.
All right.
So I do have another clip specifically, which I don't think we'll play tonight, but specifically around the threats that they're making to punish parents. And I do have some data around, they're constantly talking about 46% of children are only there full time, yada, yada, yada. I've got some data around that. But the thing moreover than that I've been thinking, Chewie, and I'd love your thought this, and I'd love your thought chat about this, is that all this government seems to have is the stick. I was taught that you catch more flies with sugar than vinegar. I think that's the same. And all that they seem to have is the vinegar. All they seem to have is we're going to punish you if they don't. I wonder if there'd be a better way, and I guess I'm just wondering out loud, I don't have it right off the top of my tongue, but is there a better way that you could actually encourage what you want to have happen within a community by not threatening to harm them, but encouraging to promise them something, the other side of that coin, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Carrot or the stick, always the stick. Always the punch down, not the hand up. It just seems to be so consistent. It's one of those things about, like, I can't knock this government for its consistency. It is consistently awful. Like that's what it is. Like, they had a program that has been shown by one of our major universities to increase attendance, and they want to scrap it. It's just crazy.
Well, this isn't really part of this conversation, so we're going to fly by the seat of our pants a little bit here, because I'm not saying the numbers are great, but I'm saying it's important to have context for what education and absences mean. So this is the report that Luxon's constantly talking about. 46% of students met the criteria for regular attendance present more than 90% of the term. This is a decrease, yada, yada, yada. But what's important to know is what were the other percentages. And you can see it's dropped in the last wee while. So it's definitely gone down. But I did read, I should have highlighted it, there was a reason for it. And it had to do with things like winter, here we go, challenges due to COVID-19. Short term. Now, I'm not doing this to throw it back in Luxon's face, not an excuse. It's just that let's explain the whole thing rather than just letting him have his bullet point. So this is what it says in the report. Short-term illnesses / medical absences continue to be the main driver of non-attendance in Term 3 2023. The level of illness is associated with a continued incident of COVID-19 and winter illnesses. The requirement for students and staff to self-isolate for 7 days if they tested positive for COVID-19 was still in place during the first part of Term 3. So, of course, if that happened, right, remember you can only be away one day out of every 2 weeks. So if you have 7 days away, which means you're away for 5 days, that's immediately fucked you for the whole term. So one case of COVID, if you've got COVID and you're off for a week, then you're not 90% for the whole term. So this is one of the things it's saying. First place, it was lifted from 15th of August, right? So there is a reason. So the thing about this that we always do, and I always want to see journalists do, and they never really do, is to let the politician use the talking point and then go, why is that? So Mr. Luxon, why were what we call full-time attenders only there for 46% of the term? Why is that? We get the number, but why? And this will actually show you as well the actual numbers. So regular attendance, that's there for more than 90% of the term, 46%. Irregular attendance, so they're there for more than 80% and up to 90% of the term, 28%. Moderate absence, that's irregular absence, Moderate absence, that's more than 70% and up to 80% of the time, 12%. And chronic absence, that they're only there for 70% or less, is 13%. Now, for me, this is the one that matters most, chronic absence. This is the one, moderate absence, which is still concerning, because let's say they're there 75% of the time. That means they're missing 1 day every 4. That's a day a week, a bit more than that. That feels like it's too much, yeah? But if you have a 9-week term and you're off for COVID and you're out for 5 days, then that already puts you straight to 90%. So I just think it's important, whether you think this is a coverall or not, that we see that the numbers Mr. Luxon are giving are accurate, right? 46%. But he doesn't explain what that is, 90% of the term. He doesn't explain that COVID stand downs were still in place. And he doesn't also explain what irregular absence, which could be 89%. So those two together are about 75%. So about 3/4 of the students are there 80% of the time and more during a time when there was a 7-day COVID stand down, Chewy. That's it. You now at least have the accurate information. I'm not going to comment on whether that's a cover-all for the good or bad numbers, but you have it. So now we can be accurate, Chewy.
I love this though. This absolutely shows what they'll do. Yes, the numbers are technically correct, but removed from all context, that paints a very different picture, right? If you're only going to quote the 45%, then people will draw their own conclusions that, like, what? Over half of students are absent, and that can mean whatever I want it to mean? Yeah, don't spell it out. Don't spell it out. It plays into the narrative. People will fill their own conclusions that these guys are dealing meth for the gangs or doing ram raids or something like that, rather than being off sick for a week.
So if the last week of the term, they're normally 9 or 10 weeks, let's call it 10 weeks, and there's a couple of public holidays in there, so let's go times 5 and let's go -2. So let's say it's 48 school days, right? Times that by 0.89, so that would slip into the second one. So if you're away for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... If you're away for 5.5 days, you're into that 80%. That's 89%. So if you're away for 5.5 days, remember, if you got COVID, you're definitely away for at least 5 of them. For if you're away for 5.5 days, you slip down into that second tier that Luxon's not referring to. Again, I'm not actually doing this to defend that it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the accurate information. If you're away for 5.5 days in that term, then you're not going to be in the 90% and up bracket.
And then that's completely ignoring the other part of it of rushing kids back to school with sickness into overcrowded classrooms.
Yeah.
That just seems like a one-way trip to a hiding, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have more kids off sick more often.
In fact, it kind of feels like it's one of the quote-unquote good things to come out of COVID is I think it feels like some people are now, I've got the flu, I'm going to stay home, rather than I've got the flu, I have to go to work. I think in some workplaces, bosses, I've experienced at least, bosses seeing it differently now where they're like, if you come into work with your flu, we're not even talking about COVID, with your flu and pass it around my team, actually I'm going to be much worse off rather than you just staying home and getting well. I feel like there's a I'm not going to say all bosses, but there's an element of that attitude that's come out of COVID for some, and I think it's a healthy one. Same for school, Chewy. Do we want the whole class to go down with the flu because the kid came back too early, or do we want them to get well, come back, and then the rest of the class is not impacted?
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, that's context, and this government doesn't do context. It does numbers.
Yeah.
But we're not going to look too deeply into them.
Yeah. Okay, let's just have a look at these because these are from breakfast because they talked about all the buzzwords that were in there, yeah? And I've got a couple of clips. One, there's only 16 seconds and like 25 seconds, but it's Anna Burns-Francis, I guess, challenging Mr. Luxon on the buzzwords. And let's just have a listen to what he said about it.
Talk me through this plan then, because I've had a look at it. There are 36 points.
Yep.
Take decisions is mentioned at least 12 times. What does take decisions mean?
Well, if you think about it, in our last 100-day plan, we had very bespoke actions like ban the mobile phones, which I'd say to you has been a raving success. And it's a very clear, clean, set of actions that you can take a decision on.
Have you got some measurable outcomes for that cell phone ban already?
Yeah, that was well picked up on by Anna Burns-Francis because he said it's a raving success. And when I watched this, I didn't watch it live. When I watched it for the first time, I said the same thing. You know what I always ask, and your metric for that is. But Anna Burns-Francis did it, and what he says is he's got anecdotal evidence from some principals and teachers. Yeah, he's got the vibes.
It's the vibes.
That you can take a decision on.
Have you got some measurable outcomes for that cell phone ban already?
Yeah, no, we're just saying the feedback we're getting back from principals and parents is fantastic. Even the kids are actually liking it. So that's been a good decision because it's sort of, an important thing to get kids focused on learning. But then there have been other big...
So that's the first one, right? And let's go straight into the second one because there's just a couple of clips I pulled out because they've done the whole story, but let's just have a look at the buzzwords. This is another one where Anna Burns-Francis talking about, now we've talked about the decisions, right? Take decisions as being in there 12 times, but how do you measure that? This guy's all about KPIs, he's all about objectives, he's all about achievements. How do you measure take decisions?
13 weeks.
Yeah, so how do you measure take decisions then?
Well, those are decisions that
one
will...
decision or no decision.
Yeah, but when we're actually making a decision in Cabinet, for example, that's exactly what we mean. We're saying we're locking on our course of action. We've actually considered the issue. We've taken advice on the issue. This is how the proposal is going to shape up. We're moving it forward so that the next quarter and the quarter after that, we're continuing to get it actually closer to implementation for people.
How many?
So there you go. There's a couple of examples. I just wanted people to be aware of what the buzzwords are that everyone's talking about. So basically he's saying to measure take decisions, you make decisions in Cabinet and then you move it forward. And that's part of their new 36 point action plan, Chewy.
As soon as I saw this, right, I've worked in big organizations that love KPIs, that thrive on KPIs, and they love talking about something called SMART. Your goals have got to be SMART. Right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. So I went through this bullet point list that he's done. And it's a really common corporate thing. Like if you're setting targets for your team or what you want to achieve this quarter and that sort of thing, that's how you come up with them. Because otherwise you can just come up with it's all ethereal. It's all try and grab the cloud sort of thing. And nobody achieves anything. Nothing on this list meets those criteria. Like I love the very specific language of taking decisions. Not making them, taking them.
What does it mean?
Who talks like that? It doesn't mean anything. It's management gobbledygook through a political evasiveness filter. And he just wants to position himself, say, look, we're doing something. And it's like, no, because it doesn't meet any of these criteria. Like, you can't run a country like a business. You can't run a government like it's a business, and they're not getting it. He's just not getting it. He's farming these things out to his ministers, which is fine. But, like, if you're going to put out a list and have other people look at it, and you're going to have all of these eyeballs on it, and they're just going to go, fucking what? What does this even mean?
Yeah.
Like we pointed out, of like raise the energy. One of them is come up with better outcomes for renters. Like, what does that mean? Like, it's great. We can say that we want the weather to be better. You can put that on. Everybody wants the weather, but how do you make the weather better? How are you going to change all the market forces that affect renters in the next 100 days? Just it's laughable that he thinks that this is an action plan.
Yeah, and again, when you have some people on the right who are virulent in their political persuasion, telling him to, well, I guess they're not quite telling him to, but they're offering the suggestion that maybe we shouldn't think about the country like a company. When they're saying it, we've been saying that since that we printed T-shirts saying not a businessman, just a board member. We've been saying this forever and a day, that if you run the country like a company, you'd actually close all the libraries on day one because they don't make any profit. So it seems that others are starting to pick up on where we led, Chewy. Where we led, sir. Cheers. Would you like a drink? Sorry, I know I'm very rude. I'm pouring myself a drink. Would you like one? I can see one across.
I don't think we have that technology. If I get a
Smell-o-vision.
knock on my door, I'm going to be fucking freaked out.
We should totally do that one night. That'd be hilarious. Let's just have a quick look as well to co-leader of the Green Party, Chloe Swarbrick's response. Untethered from reality, Swarbrick on government's new action plan. I'll read you some of this report, which is also on One News. In response to the announcement, Green Party co-leader Chloe Swarbrick said there were no surprises nor, quote, meaningful solutions, end quote, in the government's, quote, bingo card for environmental destruction and trickle-down economics, end quote. Quote, Christopher Luxon is not in the boardroom anymore. The irony is these bullet points wouldn't even hold up in the corporate world, vague, immeasurable, and untethered from reality and evidence as they are. What on earth does raising the energy New Zealand brings to international relationships mean? For who precisely and how in reality does the government want to improve the rental market? She said when someone showed you who they are, you should believe them. That was Maya Angelou, I think. Was it Maya Angelou? Believe them the first time.
I think she's quoting you.
No. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. Because I was quoting Maya Angelou. Should believe, actually, the quote is believe them the first time. When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. And the government had shown that its focus was, quote, squarely on gutting environmental, climate, and social gains in order to line the pockets of a few at the top. They could at least be honest about it. And Chloe, I agree with you. And to be honest, we've been saying that here for a year. Like, you don't, if you think your ideas are the best in the marketplace of ideas, even if they're abhorrent to some people, you should be honest about them. And you should say, these are, we want to open up native land to mining as much as we can, even if some think it's abhorrent. If you think it's the best idea, we want to get rid of the smoking ban, as an example. If you think that's the best way forward, then you need to stand up and do it. I guess this is a comment for all political parties. Whatever you think is actually the best. One of the things that frustrates me most of all, and I used to talk about this with John Key. John Key went along with working for families and interest-free student loans. Now, I'm cool with that because I was impacted. I got the benefit of that. But that's not national policy. But he didn't have the courage to go, this kind of socialism, because that's how he'd talk about it, is not what's best for the country. What's best for the country is this neoliberal blah, 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 blah. So they play this kind of bullshit middle game where they're not honest about what they're trying to do, and they use buzzwords and they're mealy-mouthed, and they go around and round the corner, and they try and say that they try and gaslight you by saying, no, that's not what we're doing. We're not wanting big tobacco to make more money. We are wanting fewer New Zealanders to smoke, and we're doing that by getting rid of the smoke-free legislation. So they just gaslight you, and they just bullshit you, but what they're doing is they're trying to get those legislations and those laws changed that they think are best, as Chloe said, without being honest about it. And it's the worst kind of politics, whoever does it, Chewy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, they're consistent.
There's a few super chats and stuff that have come in. Let's have a squiz, shall we? Peter, someone on Reddit was talking about the business culture of vomiting a thesaurus at you in the hopes you'd stop paying attention. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you, Peter, for the super chat. Appreciate that.
That's an interesting point, actually, because I remember during Key's government that there was the discussion of the dead cat tactic.
Yeah.
Where if you've got something unpalatable going on, you go and slam something embarrassing out in the public. So people will start talking about that instead to distract away from what you're doing. And I think this government are not playing that game. They're doing, the corporate buzzword death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still going to go back to that previous comment, but Chloe, be honest about it. You know, if you think opening a Marsden Point is the best thing for us, then show us your workings, Mr. Luxon. Show us your workings and actually let the country decide. Don't just kind of play culture war games all the way through. Blame Labor, blame Labor, blame Labor. Convince enough of the population that Labor is to blame. And then when you get in there, start doing all the things you haven't talked about and say, but this is what we've been voted in for. We've had the mandate. We were voted in. No, but that's all true. Kenny's dead. Kenny's dead. Super chat, thank you, sir. Heard Mike Hosking criticising Luxon, LOL. Yeah, but you probably find Mike Hosking's criticising Luxon because he's not going hard enough. I saw in the weekend as well. From my very sick bed. Luxon talking, I don't have the story, I should look it up. Luxon talking about playing a moderate game. Remember how Jacinda talked, we were critical of Jacinda because she was like, she's going to, not that she was going to be a prime minister for everyone, but she was going to be cautious and she's going to be middle of the ground. And we were like, no, do more. But she didn't. But Luxon kind of said a similar thing over the weekend. And I was thinking, really, like having a referendum on the treaty. I think that's kind of middle, like cancelling smoke-free New Zealand. That's sort of middle. That's not like extreme or radical one way or the other. You're honestly trying to sell that to us. I don't know about that, son. I don't know.
It is strange. Like, our criticism towards Labor was that they were squandering their mandate.
Yeah.
And that we wish that they would be braver and reach further, and that sort of thing. And what really is sticking in my throat at the moment is that National have taken that advice. Well, National Act and New Zealand First have taken that advice and are taking this mandate that they have and reaching further, doing it faster and that sort of thing. So this whole thing of when the left get in and they don't want to do too much left stuff because you piss off the middle. Like it's very much a one-sided thing because when the right get in, they don't give a fuck about the left.
This is exactly right, Joe. And this is the whole thing for 20 years that I've been in sort of news media. It's always been the right know how to play politics better. They are hard-nosed. I mean, if you want to go to America and talk about, when was it Obama was in and they weren't going to put the right made a rule that in the last term of a presidency you shouldn't be able to appoint a Supreme Court justice. And then in the last year of Trump, they actually said, might have been Mitch Connell, whatever his name is, who actually said, it's different now. And they put in a Supreme Court, and they go like, fuck you guys, we'll do what we want. And the left, in general, across the world, might be a bit different in New Zealand, but have this idea of kind of let's work together and push this forward together. And they're like, okay, when they're in government, and then when they're not in government, they're like, fuck you, we'll do what we want. We don't care. They play ugly to win, and the left like to play an attractive sports ball. So the left want to be they want to pass the ball perfectly and have a perfect spiral, even if it doesn't result in a try. But the right are just like, I'll punch you, I'll grab your balls, I'll run over you, I'll sprig you. As long as I can score a try, nothing else matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was quite a long-winded response to a couple of super chats. I don't understand this one from Mr. Arvids. I probably missed something, or maybe you know what he's talking about, Troy, but thank you for the super chat. Remember when Luxon literally spoke his mind and compared the country to a country? Do you know that? Do you get that? Oh, he probably said compared. It's probably compared the country to a company. It's probably what it's supposed to say.
Yeah.
That's probably what it's supposed to say. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate that. All right. Anything else in the chat you want to get to? Anything else you want to share before we move on to?
No, I actually haven't started anything. So yeah, let's roll on.
So this is from One News. Maybe it's last night. Because of course it's Tuesday, isn't it? I was still thinking, no, this is. But it was a public holiday yesterday. Hope everyone had a good Easter. Hope you're all back safe and well. Everyone listened to us and paid attention to be safe on the roads and stuff. Hope you're all well. This is talking about something that you and I are both heavily into, probably more so you than me, Chewy. But this is about what's coming on the 1st of April, right? With the new rules and landlords, deductibility and minimum wage going up by 2%, even though, that doesn't keep up with inflation. So it's not, so minimum wage, people are still going backwards. But there's a big portion of the story talking about the EV market. And I'll just highlight it, even though it is said in there. Last year, new car sales averaged 27% of new car sales last year, each month, on average, were EVs. Last month, under this government, I can use one hand, 5% of new car sales were EVs. Now, remember, and never forget this, that at the point, and Chewy, you can explain this better than me, but at the point that these guys threw out the clean car rebate, it was paying for itself. It was cash flow positive. It was not costing the country anything. And they got rid of it anyway because they wanted to signal to a very small base who were paying what they thought was the ute tax, the farmers, when we already know that 90% of utes being bought and used weren't by people working. They were like, I used to own a ute, and I owned a media company, and I used it for that kind of stuff. Never went on a farm. They were people like me, Chewy.
Yeah, fringe benefit tax.
Yeah.
That's what they're avoiding. I used to work in broadcasting. All of our vehicles were big 4-wheel drives and that sort of thing that were used to haul around free samples and call flute signs. Just absolute bananas behavior, and you can check this yourself. Go down to the CBD wherever you are and count the sign written utes in perfect condition.
Yep.
Showroom shine. Never seen a gravel road.
Never seen mud in their life.
Yeah.
So anyway,
absolutely.
A long-winded introduction to a story, but this is what they're talking about. And they mentioned the EV. The biggest part of the story is about what's happening with EVs in New Zealand under this government, especially post 1st of April when all the rules changing for everything.
It's the beginning of the new year, the financial year, that is. And from today, April 1st, a number of changes come into effect. The adult minimum wage is going up by 2%, from $22.70 an hour to $23. And
now, this is not necessarily criticism of National, Chewy, because I don't know how much it would have gone up under Labor, but if it's less than inflation, it obviously means they're going backwards. So minimum wage earners are going backwards under this government. They could, if Labor had have won, they could have also been going back under Labor. I'm not saying it's just National, but the reality is National is government and minimum wage earners are going backwards under National. So that's accurate.
But hang on.
15.
Yep.
Isn't this government laser focused on the cost of living?
No. Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. Apparently the answer is yes.
That's something that they could have done to kind of redress the about. It's inflationary as fuck, but still.
No, but they've got no money because of the last government. Not because $3 billion has been given back. The last government left the cupboards bare, so they couldn't do another 20 or 30 cents because you know what I mean.
And the usual argument. The usual argument is minimum wage goes up, a business goes out of business, which never happens. But
never ever. All right, here we go.
Cents. The student allowance increases by almost $28 a week. There's more money going into pensioners' wallets. And for those living alone, they'll get almost $50 more a fortnight. And a couple will get more than $70. And the Working for Families tax credit jumps around $8. Interest deductibility is also back From today, landlords can now write off up to 80% of their mortgage interest, and this rises to 100%.
From today, National wanted it to be 100% backdated, and the negotiation was 80% from now, rising to 100%.
From April 1st next year. And changes to road user charges come into effect today as well for electric vehicle and plug-in hybrid drivers. EV owners will pay $76 every 1,000 Ks, while plug-in hybrid owners pay $38. Lisa Davies has more.
The brakes have gone on the popularity of electric vehicles, and the new road user charges are getting the blame.
Unfortunately, EV sales are less than 5% of new car sales now, where last year they were averaging 27%.
Just think about that, right? Mr. Luxon, who loves KPIs, key performance indicators. What indicator does it tell us that the EV market has been decimated like that? Like from 1 in 4 cars, 1 in 4 new cars were EVs last year. Now it's 1 in 20. What KPI? What does that tell us about that? What this government has done to that market?
Yeah, and the flow-on effect is going to be that they don't bring in as much, because the stock's not moving, so you don't get as much choice and that sort of thing. There is going to be a snowball effect here.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep going. Oh, all right. To put my sound back on, do that. Go back a little bit. Oh. Gosh, it's all going to pear, isn't it? It's custard. What's happening here? That'll do.
This EV importer is bearing the brunt of it.
Ideally, if you want people to use electric cars, you want to offer positive incentives, not negative incentives, which is we've swung from one to the other now.
However, the Transport Minister says now EVs...
How many times do you think he says potholes in this conversation, Chewie? We'll see. I'm betting a couple. That's my guess.
Make up 2% of all light vehicles. The exemption needed to be lifted.
To ensure that all road users contribute towards building and maintaining the roads, fewer potholes, better roads, everyone's got to pay their fair share.
But it's not the charge itself the EV industry takes issue with, it's the amount.
We've got EV owners and pure electric vehicles now paying 23% more than petrol drivers. So that's not really equitable. We're at the same level as diesel vehicles.
The government doesn't accept that makes EVs unappealing.
Ultimately, it's much cheaper to drive an electric vehicle in terms of running costs than it is to drive a petrol or diesel vehicle.
However...
Yeah, but let's just be clear. It's also much more expensive to buy the equivalent electric vehicle than it is to buy the equivalent petrol vehicle. Would that be fair, Chewie?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So again, right? What he's saying is true. National will give you the top line information and never delve deeper. So he's got that, but he's not also saying, but you might also pay double the price. Like for what you can buy in an EV, what you could buy for $40,000 in a combustion engine is probably what you'd buy in a $70,000, $80,000 EV. What you can buy in an $80,000 combustion engine is probably what you're getting at $120,000 or $150,000 as an EV. The standard of car, the standard of trim, that sort of thing as well. So again, National identifying a truth, but leaving out the what to say around it to bring the context to it as well. Yes, they're cheaper to run, but they're also twice as much to buy. Now they are. They might not have been when Labour was in, but they are now, Chewie.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people go when the sales case for EVs is that you're paying for your transport costs up front, right? So yeah, they do cost more, but you save money in ongoing petrol and maintenance costs and all of this sort of stuff. So he's just saying, oh, they're still appealing. No, and it's also just such shallow thinking. He's not thinking about energy resilience. He's not thinking about climate targets and environmental benefits. He's not talking about social benefits as well. Like less emissions in the year is great for people's lungs.
Yep.
And just not being around those carcinogens of being near a transport corridor or something like that. Like there's so many flow-on effects. And I take issue with this constant point where they go that everybody needs to pay their fair share for roading. I am in so many New Zealand EV groups and not a single person is saying that we shouldn't pay road user charges. They're saying the numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
the sums that they have used to work out this is not fair. So when, like, I got a letter last week just reminding me that it starts this way, and it says every road user needs to pay their fair share. Now you're suggesting to me that the system is fair, and we know that it's not.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they came and what would that be? Say take a third off 75. So if it was $50 for EVs per 1,000, that would be about the right number, give or take, $55 per 1,000 Ks. And then are you saying amongst the groups you're at, no one would then have a complaint?
There's always complainers, but
yeah.
That seemed to be pretty much what people that submitted on were saying.
Yep.
That you could just basically halve that number for both EVs and plug-in hybrids. And there was a strong argument for going, if the overall aim is to have all passenger vehicles on a road user charge, why not do the work and just do that rather than have this half and half sort of thing? Because I think if it gets to the stage of petrol powered passenger cars having to pay this road user charge, they will be furious. So yeah, maybe do that work, get that right.
This business has been forced to stop importing.
It clearly is proving a disincentive for the uptake of EVs.
Now the market has gone into reverse.
It's disappointing because it's going to have a massive, financial and social and environmental cost to the country.
In the big picture, it simply means more emissions.
With fewer electric vehicles on our roads. Lisa Davies, One News.
All right, there we go. I'm back. You saw my subtle hand waving there like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. I mean, this whole road user charge thing is laughably fucked. So, I mean, one of the things, right, is Can
I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Sorry, because I went into a coughing fit, so I couldn't ask before. Just for clarity for me and for others. So you're saying if we remove it from everybody, basically petrol drops by whatever the litre is of road user charges, and then they pay it separately like EVs do and diesels do, and petrol's cheaper. That's basically what you're saying?
Yeah, you remove the fuel excise cost and you put the road user charges on every vehicle to reflect their damage to the roads. And, basically if your vehicle's under, I think it's 3.5 tons, you do negligible damage to the roads anyway. It increases by an order of magnitude the heavier the car gets. Right. They've stated that that's the overall goal, and the EVs are just the first cab off the rank to where the changes. Like other things that piss me off about this, right, is it's supposed to start yesterday. You are required to have road user charges from yesterday, but also confusingly not really, because you're also not required to have them until the 31st. So why would anybody go out and buy them now when they don't have to? It's just it's really strange. There's a $12.50 admin fee on every purchase, and you've got to be purchased. So
someone just goes, it's $75 for 1,000 Ks. If they're a low income, $75 for 1,000 Ks. Yeah, that's going to be 87, and then the next 1,000 is going to be 87. And
correct.
Fuck.
So it's a regressive tax. Why is there such a large admin fee? Why do I need a physical sticker in my windscreen again? Is there not a better way to do this? This is all stuff that they could have acknowledged. I've got a few figures based on the EV sales as well I can show here. Data from March 2024 concludes a particularly quiet 3 months for EV market in New Zealand. 605 fully electric vehicles were registered, with another 353 plug-in hybrids. 9.28% of new passenger vehicles were EVs, down from 27.2%. And you can see that graph there that it was climbing, and now it's just plateaued.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If vehicle makers want to keep selling EVs, maybe they're going to have to become more aggressive on price. But if we're out of step with the rest of the world market, then I don't really see how they can.
Yeah.
It's just odd. I feel like it's an ideological position that they've painted in because they went so hard on ute tax, but now we have no disincentive for high emitting vehicles and no incentive for low emitting vehicles. It's like the smoking thing, right? Oh, we want to encourage, we want to hit our climate targets and we want to hit our emissions targets. We're not going to do anything to make that happen.
I think we'll know what'll happen though. People should probably be aware of this. That when the government changes again, and it will change, whether that's 3 years, 6 years, 9 years, we'll see. It will go back. It will go back the other way. So people may be able to buy their big burning vehicles for the next few years without a stick. But then it'll go back the other way, and you'll probably see like many policies or many outcomes in the country. Under the left, it'll start to climb. The right will come in, it'll drop off. Then it'll start to climb, it'll drop off. Until they get basically forced into this particular area when you can only buy new electric cars. I think in the UK, don't they say by 2030 only new cars will be sold that are EVs?
Yeah,
you'll only be allowed to buy EVs.
It's going to happen because so much follows the EU, right? If you're a big car manufacturer and you want to sell cars in the EU, you are going to have those electric options available.
Yeah,
China, as an example, has gone bloody all in on EVs.
Yeah.
And America is kind of dragging the train. So if you're going to keep making petrol cars, then your market is going to be North America, and that's about it. There's lots of things. It just seems to be a poorly thought out, or maybe they did know all these things. Maybe they did know all of these problems, and they've just chosen to disregard it. We've seen from this government that they're quite happy to take expert advice and throw it away. I can't imagine that they haven't had people going, hey, look, here are the issues with bringing in road user charges. Here are the issues with scrapping the clean car rebate or any of that. But they've just gone, yeah, it doesn't match up with our election promises, so damn the torpedoes, we're doing it anyway.
But we know that about National. They'll only take advice when it suits their pre-prepared narrative. When it doesn't, they won't.
And that narrative that they've put out there, that EV owners just don't want to contribute, that they're freeloaders and that sort of thing. Like, that's not the reason. There's a lot of people that drive electric cars for their performance benefits. There's lots of people that drive their electric cars for the financial benefits. There's lots of people that drive electric cars for the environmental benefits and that sort of thing. And look, there's people in the chat sort of going, well, why should people subsidize other people getting EVs? Because it benefits us all. When there's such clear evidence about the negative effects of carcinogens in the air, pollutants in the air, and climate change obligations and that sort of thing, we need to change. We need to change. Things can't stay the same. Things have got better. Like, a lot of cars are a lot more efficient than they ever used to be. But then you turn around, every time you see one of those Ford Ranger Raptors that are going around, those enormous, they are some of the highest emission vehicles on our roads, and they're so desirable for people. And you want to be ultra mega big nuts tough guy, then that's the car that you buy. My argument is that there should be a disincentive for buying such an obnoxious vehicle, because just deciding that the person's a wanker every time you see one is obviously not dissuading people from doing it.
Just to settle something going on in the chat right now, and I'm not particularly interested in engaging with it. Energy in New Zealand 2023 shows renewable electricity generation increased to 87%. I just saw some chats going on about this, and so 87% of New Zealand's electricity is renewable. I just wanted to finish.
The argument that EVs are powered by fossil fuels in New Zealand is laughable. If you are in the South Island, there is not a skerrick of energy that comes from a non-renewable source. And Huntly Power Station is pretty much only spun up to deal with the power spikes that come out of Auckland only. We have so much renewable energy here. And most people would charge their electric cars at night at periods of low usage when it's all renewable. It's a laughable, disproven, debunked argument.
But also people get confused because they start talking about all energy consumption. So they talk about cars driving on the road being an energy consumption, and they obviously do use fossil fuels. But we're talking about electricity because that's what you use to charge your EV. And 87% of New Zealand's electricity, power to our houses and businesses, is renewable. So let's just stop that.
And if that's a problem, then you've identified another problem. We need to do more renewable energy. And the choice is massive projects like wind farms or dams or microgeneration. My views on microgeneration are really, really clear. My brother-in-law was over here from Australia, and he was just like, I don't understand why New Zealand hasn't adopted what Australia has done in many states of subsidizing solar panels on people's roofs.
100%.
It just makes sense.
Talking before about what the left will do when they come back in, because I care for $2. Thanks for the super chat, says, and slap capital gains tax in straight away when they get in, Pat. I think you'll find the next election cycle, that'll be one of their policies. Because this time around, it would have worked and it was popular. So they were just cowards not to do that. Winnie Bear, thank you for your super chat, $10. How can the right be so dumb? They act like the more money someone makes, the harder they have worked and the more they have contributed to society. Yeah, no, I hear you. It's always interesting to hear and I'm using an exaggerated example, but the factory owner thinks that they work so much harder than the factory floor workers. So yeah, no, I'm hearing you. Okay, I've got a bit of a twisty one for you now. It's a bit of fun, actually. Friend of the show, Joe Rogan. Not a friend of the show, just joking. That was a joke. Has, since back in the day when he endorsed Bernie Sanders, has drifted more and more to the realms of the alt-right and become a bit of a icon to those on the far right for like just saying it how it is and just, not being afraid to be cancelled. Well, you can't be cancelled if you're like the key shareholder in the platform that you're operating on and they need you to survive, and they've basically set it up that you've got all the power to do what you want. However, something interesting happened over the weekend where the left have jokingly started saying that Rogan is Hamas. And now what's happened is some on the right have picked it up, and they're saying it like it's serious. So Joe Rogan apparently, and my tongue's in my cheek, has gone pretty woke, and he has become one with Hamas, and some on the right are losing their shit over their high priest saying something that for most of what he's talking about is pretty accurate about Gaza. It's a little bit like we talked about with Karen this evening. If you've lost Karen, Christopher Luxon, then perhaps we're running the country like a country, not a company spiel is not going. If you've lost Rogan on the Israel-Gaza conflict, maybe there's something that you need to address. Let's have a listen to some comments he made in his podcast in the last week or so, talking about Israel is committing genocide.
Even in the right, like, look what's going on with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. Dude. Like, what did she say? I want to know what she was fired for. Because was it criticism of Israel? Did she show that Edward Snowden video that he put up on Twitter that shows them drone bombing those kids those men, I should say, unarmed people that were walking towards the rubble that clearly weren't causing any danger to anybody? Yeah, right. They just bombed them.
Yeah, no, it's your duty. It's just like for Biden or whoever you like, you're supposed to cover up for them because.
But the whole thing is like they're always saying they're only targeting Hamas and everybody else is a casualty. Well, if those guys are just unarmed civilians and they're walking alone, that's what they appear to be.
Dresden.
And you just blast them from the sky with robots.
This is the tragedy of war.
Yeah, this is insane. And no one knows what to think now, because if you can't talk about that, if you can't say that's real, then you're saying that genocide is okay as long as we're doing it. And
that is what we're saying.
And if you're saying that from a perspective of someone who literally went through the Holocaust, or your people, your tribe went through the fucking Holocaust, and now you're willing to do it?
I hope the irony's not lost on you.
It's so nuts. It's so hard to imagine that someone where a culture, like a country, was like officially founded in what, 47?
48.
48? Okay, officially founded. So that's so recent. and you guys are willing to do what was done to you that led you to believe that you needed to start your own country? You're willing to do that, at least on a small scale, in Gaza. Like, there's nothing left. If you see the videos, let's see some recent footage
and they
of
go
Gaza.
Into, another thing. So, you know, we would say, Chewy, he said something sensible. But when a priest on the right in America, a high priest on the right, says something that seems sensible and obvious to the rest of us, the right lose their mind. I don't know if you've heard that, Chewy. I'm not saying you got every single pinprick completely right, but the genesis or the general feel of it is Israel is committing a small-scale genocide like was done to them in a large-scale way in Germany.
What the fuck? Joe Rogan is a dumb person's smart person in the same way that I think that we are smart people's dumb persons. It blows my mind that so many months, what is it, November, December, January, February, March, April, 6 months into this, of just wall-to-wall comments, footage, lies, debunking, more lies, more debunking, the absolute lack of action from the international community, shuffling of papers while people get bombed to fuck, starved, hospitals blown up, all of that sort of thing. That now there's some people on fucking podcasts going, I don't know, guys, I don't think this is fucking legit. I don't think this, maybe they're the baddies. It is fucking mental. Like, Jesus Christ. Does Joe Rogan inject human growth hormone directly into his eyeballs, and so he just missed the last 6 months? Is that what's happened?
I mean, I don't know quite. I'm not, well, obviously not to defend anyone with that position, but if you're coming from a society, being the US, where for a high percentage of the people and a high percentage of the time, Israel is your little brother that can do no wrong. I mean, if your little brother gets in a fight and knocks someone out, your first reaction is to support your little brother, right? But so for some of them, it's been a journey. I just find it fascinating to watch the internet, what's happening at the moment, when the left are making a joke saying, hey, look, Joe Rogan's joined Hamas, and the right are being serious going, fuck, Joe Rogan's joined Hamas. It's just really interesting to see. And it comes back to this idea of if you deviate 5%, 2% from the approved message, then you're out. You're either 100% with us. Therefore, if you even think about considering about saying that about Israel breaking any kind of rules or law, then you're out. And I don't think it's going to happen to Joe Rogan because he's too big to fail, to coin the phrase. But it's just interesting to see when, you know, a broken watch is right twice a day. I know, Chewy, you hate it when you say things like, oh, I have to agree with Christopher Luxon, or something that Sean Plunkett said is right, and it feels horrible. This is one of those moments, and it's just interesting to see the fallout from it.
Do you remember a couple of months ago when Israel was going, you know, just really trying to justify the fact that they were bombing a hospital? And like there's tunnels under the hospital, trust us. You know, we wouldn't do this unless we had actionable intel and all of that sort of stuff. And since that, when they fucking lied, and they disregarded everybody going, well, I don't know, that's not true. That list of terrorists that you put up was a fucking work shift for nurses, you idiot. And they did it anyway. And then in the following month, they bombed, burned and destroyed every single hospital in the Gaza Strip. Al Shifra Hospital is effectively gone at this point. It is a burned out husk and just bombed out remains. They executed doctors as terrorists in there. At what point do we, like, there's so much stuff that they have lied to the international community about. Beheading babies, the mass rape, all of this sort of stuff. They just amped up everything. People are getting a benefit out of this. Obviously not the Gazans. They're getting absolutely fucked while everybody watches on and does nothing. And those of us that have eyes in our head and can see that this is fucked and wrong and should be stopped immediately just have to rally and write letters and boycott and just get increasingly more and more frustrated with this as this plays out in real time on alternative media sources, because it's not getting played on the main news. You know, Israel is shutting down the information coming out of Gaza by targeting journalists. The snipers can see who they're hitting. They know what they're doing. Because by the time that everybody rallies around and goes, well, actually, this has gone too far, they would have done what they wanted to do, which is turn Gaza a car park and a real estate fire sale. It is madness. And I think if it gets through to someone like Joe Rogan that things are maybe a bit fucky, the question is, who else is it getting through to?
Yeah, well, and him saying that on his podcast, The Biggest in the World, not necessarily will get through to a lot of the people listening, but you know, maybe something. I'm not downplaying the serious nature of why didn't you know this 4 or 5 months ago? It's pretty obvious to anyone with eyes, but it's just interesting to see the path that it has to go. And once you've got to it, it's like what's happening, you know, Biden is starting to understand that he is going to lose votes from the progressive left if he doesn't come out and condemn what Israel's doing. So he's highly involved in the, you know, the ceasefire and the and not blocking at the UN. So they're getting it. I mean, we would all say they've got it about 5.5 months too fucking late, but they're getting it. And
I mean,
it's unfortunate they're getting it because of political expedience. You know, they're getting it because it's politically advantageous to them to get it. But if we start thinking about all that really matters is the people in Gaza, the innocents being killed, then just get it, sort it out, figure it out. If you have to do it because it's a political stunt for you, but it means that fewer people die, okay, just do it, just get it.
I mean, the US did just approve another multi-billion-dollar military aid package to Israel. So yeah, definitely stop doing that, Israel. It is bad and you are being naughty, but here's a fucking lollipop to help you keep doing it. To use your little brother analogy, if you watch your little brother go and knock over a pensioner and take her purse, you probably don't wait until he's done that consistently every week for the last 6 months before you bring it up with him.
Agreed.
You give him a fucking clip around the ear.
Yeah. Agreed. And on that note, it's time for us all to get a metaphorical clip around the air as we sail off to the sunset for tonight's show. Anything you want to highlight in the chat before we take off, brother?
No, I've been too busy ranting to highlight anything in the chat, unfortunately. Chat has been flying thick and fast tonight for reasons that everybody in the chat knows. Yeah. Like, every time you see our politicians come up with just airy, and I don't care what side of the aisle it is, come up with airy-fairy, grab a cloud, hope and rainbows thing, and instead of an actual action plan. Like, they should be criticized. You know, this is the most vacuous display of leadership I've seen. It is making me look back at Key and go, oh, fuck.
It's a bit like when you look at Trump and then you look back to George W. Bush and you kind of go, oh, the good old times.
Sweet George W. You know, when we thought the worst thing that he could do was invade Iraq and sometimes mix up his words, and yet now we look at Trump and go, he's full on sexually assaulting people and wants to let Russia invade the entirety of Europe.
Yeah.
The simple days of George W.
Yeah. And I think one of the problems, I mean, Luxon could possibly have been another John Key, could have been, but as soon as you get Winston and David Seymour pulling those strings, it's over. Because, he could have been that kind of middle manager, CEO, and yes, Māori and this guy, and we'll get the right people doing the right things. But, as soon as you team up with those two, it's over. It's just over. So whether that's, that shows he probably hasn't got a spine. But again, it comes to this idea that they will play as dirty as they can to win. And looking back now, I wonder what Luxon would say. In a behind doors, off the record conversation, would you rather be in this situation with Winston and Seymour or not form this government? He'd probably still say form the government, but it would be interesting to know because he had no idea.
He's got to be a prime minister to get a knighthood.
Yeah.
He's got to be a prime minister to get all the post prime minister perks.
Yes. All right. Well, lovely to be with you, team. I hope some of you checked out Bomber tonight. Bomber's show started up again tonight. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but I'll watch it tomorrow. And if there's some interesting conversations going on there, including, is Auckland University as bad as the KKK? That was one of his topics for tonight. So I imagine we'll probably have a look at some of that stuff tomorrow night. Obviously a short week, 3-day week. And and I'm going away this weekend. Yay. It's my 6-year anniversary today. No, yesterday. Yesterday.
Nice.
Congrats, my 6-year anniversary. Now, obviously, to a lot of people out there who use the phrase basement dweller and neckbeard, they'll think that's a 6-year anniversary with my mother, but it's not. It's with my partner. So 6 years yesterday. So we're going away tomorrow. So, not tomorrow. Sorry, Friday. Going to go up into Central. All right, Sam. Did you wear your BHN gear to the Warbirds? Did anyone come say good day?
I did. I didn't have anyone come up and say good day, but I did get a knowing nod from someone in a food line who was wearing an anti-fascist hoodie.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm going to take that as acknowledgement.
That's like the secret handshake. The secret handshake. They knew. You knew. You both knew.
Pretty much. I am going to leave you. I was going through all of my millions of photos. I did want to put one up in the show, but I was trying to decide which one. I can only do one, Pat.
Yep.
I think I'm going to do this one. I'm particularly proud of this. There we go.
What'd you take it on?
I have a little Olympus OMD EM Mark II that I've had for about 6 or 7 years. Does some particularly stellar work for such a small camera. I don't get it out nearly enough.
There is also a message for you. I haven't read this. This is really bad radio. Whatever we do, whatever this thing is, for you. And I just noticed the first line of it. It's on the Facebook page. There's something about the plane you were talking about. Chewy, the mosquito you were talking about ended up at Omaka, Blenheim. The one at Wanaka was one that was owned by the person who made all the molds for rebuilding the mosquitoes.
Have I got them mixed up?
That have been made in New Zealand. That was from Don through the Facebook group.
Oh, okay. No, as soon as you said that, Don, yes, you are correct. I have got my airplanes mixed up.
Cool.
I think the Mustang there is maybe one of those rebuilds.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful. All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. Big Hero News. Thanks for being back with us. Remember, it is a short week this week, but we are back for the next 2 nights. 9 p.m. Through till 10 p.m. because that's when we always finish on time for our hour-long show at 10 p.m. on the dot. And that's when we always finish right on 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you set your watch to it.
So come back tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Bring a friend. Look forward to seeing you then. Be safe, everyone. Hooroo.